Well, you may have seen the images yesterday of the latest Insulate Britain protest in Westminster, literally preventing an insulation lorry from delivering a load of, yes, you guessed it, insulation.
Yes, well, this isn't the first time the group have been criticised for preventing the very thing they say isn't happening enough in this country, insulating Britain's homes. But more seriously, with yesterday's protest so close to Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital, are Insulate Britain now endangering the lives of others as well as inconveniencing tradespeople? Yes, well, we're joined now by Dr Bing Jones, one of the spokespeople for Insulate Britain. Doctor, do you not see the irony in some of the images that have been coming out, that there was an insulation truck doing exactly what you're calling for, and you guys are blocking it? And I'm sure there's going to be many other instances in the past and also in the future of you guys blocking the very thing that you're wanting to achieve.
Well, of course, there'll be people of all sorts of works of life, trades in any blockage which we make, but you've got to get the picture here. We're doing this we're making people miss a meal to save everybody from starving to death. And in terms of that insulation truck, what we're doing actually is getting those people an enormous amount more trade. What we want to do is to get insulating people working for the rest of their lives. That's exactly what we're doing, helping that person in that truck insulate houses.
Dr Jones, isn't it very convenient that essentially you justify everything that you do by preventing all of these catastrophes? Isn't that a very easy way to avoid any criticism? If I say that I'm going to do something that horrendous, that disrupts the lives of millions of people, but justify it on the ground of this grand, noble cause, then that basically gives me a get-out-of-jail-free card. And is that exactly what you want? A get-out-of-jail-free card where no one can really criticise you or challenge you because you are professing to be acting on behalf of all of us for a grand, noble cause?
No. What we want is to get into jail card. What we're doing is, these are good, ordinary, kind people who are worried about your children. And we want to go to jail because we want to expose the fact that the government is not looking after us. They are not looking after your children. They're pretending to look after you.
Why do you need to be enveloped in Boris Johnson's bosom 24/7? Why can't you just look after yourself?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Why do we need the government to look after every single element of our lives? Oh, if Boris Johnson didn't tell me to put pants on today, I wouldn't have. If Boris Johnson doesn't look after me in this regard, just insulate your own home.
I'm quite sure that you haven't even begun to read what all these reports are saying. The government's Climate Change Committee is talking about a massive insulation programme which is absolutely core to our addressing this climate problem. We haven't even begun. Individual people can't solve the problems of the climate crisis. We can do a little bit, we can turn the tap off when we're cleaning our teeth. It's absolute nonsense. That is not what's needed. What's needed is 90% reduction in our emissions. You guys haven't read the reports. You haven't troubled yourself to look at what the Chatham House report said on the 14th of September, which is that thousands of people, millions of people are going to be fried to death.
I think that you really need to be cautious of some of the catastrophic claims that you're making. But actually what I can say is that I am living in a society that is a million times more economically resilient and sustainable than generations before. And that's because of economic development. That's because of the Industrial Revolution. That's because many of my ancestors, and I'm sure yours, fought and died to live in the materially secure society that we live in now. And actually, I think humanity has faced many challenges in the past, and the best way that you deal with them is economic development, economic resilience, and you want to take us back to a time long before we had the kinds of resilience that we have now to deal with environmental and social challenges. Isn't that right?
Inaya, you're talking nonsense. It's complete rubbish.
Same for you.
What we're doing, we're sitting in a society which has caused the biggest problem that humanity has ever faced. Business as usual is mostly fueled by fossil fuels, and they are burning our planet. and we've
how
got
do
to
you think
change
the
it.
computer you're
And
using to speak
it's senseless to talk about security. We are actually heading for insecurity. It's inevitable that there'll be billions of people who will be unable to feed themselves, and they'll be unable to make the food which we need to eat. 50% of our food comes from abroad, and those people will not be sending us their food. Our supermarket aisles will be empty, and our pets will die first.
Well, look,
we have no picture
had a
of how
chance,
bad this is
had a
going to get.
You've had a chance to make these very catastrophic claims.
Is that how you get out of bed in the morning?
And I really, that was the point I was just about to say. I mean, I don't see how we can have any practical, reasonable solution that addresses problems when you create a culture and a climate of fear, which terrifies young people, paralysing them, giving them, anxiety and depression at a time in their life when they should be free and enjoying themselves. And I think that you are able to encourage people to go to jail because you're in a very privileged position. Most people neither can't afford or aren't able to actually go to jail when they've actually got to feed their kids in the present time. So I think you're speaking from a very privileged position.
Inaya, it doesn't matter what position I'm speaking from.
Does.
What matters is the fact that your job is to be popular, and my job is to tell the truth. And the truth is frightening. I'm a doctor. I'm a retired doctor. And if somebody's got...
that disagree with you.
It's silly for them to be hopeful before they've gone and got their treatment. They should go and get their treatment first and then try to be hopeful. If they're not frightened, they won't go get the treatment.
It's a bit rich, isn't it, to talk about people getting treatment when you lot have been blocking ambulances, you've been blocking people from trying to get to hospital. A woman nearly passed away because she was having a stroke in the back of a car and you guys were gluing yourself to the M25. I could go on. People haven't been able to go and see their relatives in their dying moments because of what people like you are able to do, which is glue yourself to a road. So don't talk about treatment here. If you really cared about it and you really wanted to make a massive issue and you really wanted to go at this government and make them do something, why didn't you have the bottle to glue yourself in front of the beast up at COP26? Stop President Biden in his tracks, make an international scene. But you don't do it, do you? You just sit in a cycle lane somewhere near Parliament.
There have been no serious problems documented that we know about. We always have a policy of letting blue lights through, and the incidents that you're talking about has been completely... Nobody's managed to substantiate.
You want to go at me for not reading the Chatham House report. You need to go and read other reports that prove that people have been made seriously ill and nearly died as a result. So you can't, on one hand, come here and say, well, I've read the report and you've not, and then bury your head in the sand when the other stuff happens. Absolutely ludicrous, and it's complete and utter hypocrisy, which I suspect actually is a word that you're very used to.
No, I think many people would echo that. And not only that, I think that the privileged position you're in, I think it is an absolutely important point, even though you've tried to avoid it, because the environmental minister of Indonesia said forcing Indonesia to be zero deforestation by 2030 is clearly inappropriate and unfair, and has criticised these plans that are being pushed forward because that will massively halt economic development at a time like Indonesia rapidly needing it when they have millions of people already in deprivation. So I think the position you're speaking on as a privileged position is actually very important in light of developing countries that need investment and development economically rapidly now.
Inaya, that's the most crazy position to take. Of course we need to help. Of course we need to help developing countries, and that is why we need to establish the funds where rich countries are contributing substantially this £100 billion a year to help developing countries get going. That's why we need to increase the UK's foreign aid budget. Both of those things are not happening. We've got a government which is cutting back on helping poor people. We've got all sorts of problems which are going to make the developing world much more affected by the climate crisis.
We've
got to look after other people, and we've got to also be aware of the fact that we've got to be aware of the fact that the problem is the fossil fuel industry, which is
any action is justified. So do you think that authoritarian action is justified if it means mitigating the effects of climate change? Can you be honest right now? Do you think authoritarian action is justified in order to meet your environmental goals?
We are a completely
Yes or no?
non-violent, civil
authoritarian measures,
resistance
do you think
organisation.
that's justified?
We're not authoritarian. We are demonstrating in a way which is allowed and which is the cornerstone of democracy. Nobody ever got anywhere in terms of major social change by being nice. The suffragettes smashed every single window in Oxford Street so that you, Inaya, could have the vote. People don't.
Please don't compare yourself to major civil rights movements across the 20th century and before that. Please, you are not comparable to the suffragettes.
I disagree. We are comparable. We're facing a much bigger problem than the suffragettes faced. Okay. The suffragettes were honourable and they got the vote
Obviously,
for half
as a man, you're entitled to say
but
this.
we are looking at the biggest catastrophe that has ever hit humanity. And you guys have got your heads in the sand. You are ostriches. And you will be seen as such.
No, if we don't conform to your position, that doesn't mean that we have our head in the sand. There is different positions on this. There are many climate scientists that have different perspectives. And this idea that we must conform to yours or that we have our head in the sand or that we're turning a blind eye is absolutely wrong. And to me, that's the language of authoritarians, quite frankly.
You've just stated an untruth. Almost every single major international organisation has said exactly the same thing. They've said code red. They've said only 3 to 4 years for us to get this sorted out. You guys are out of time, and your audience needs to look around and needs to do their own research.
They're giving you
need to read some reports.
We regularly get you on. I do wonder, just lastly, I do wonder whether or not if we get 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line and the doomsday situation that you're predicting hasn't happened, are you actually going to be quite disappointed about that?
Patrick, of course I don't want any kind of doomsday. I want your children to live in a lovely world. I want your children to enjoy robins at Christmas. I don't want them to be sitting in a world which is burning. I don't want them to be living in a world where people abroad have no way of being able to make food. I don't want them to live in a world where supermarkets don't have food on the aisles. And that is where we're heading, and that's what every single serious climate predictor says. We're heading for a 2.7 degree rise in temperature, which is almost impossible to imagine. And even if the risk is not as high as I think it is, we still should not be taking the risk. But every single person says the same thing. Every single reputable agency says the same thing. They say we have to get worried, we need to change radically, and we must stop giving profits to the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry has Boris by the balls, and we've got to stop
you off there because we've run out of time. We've got a show to do. You've got to go and block some insulation from getting to our house. Dr. Bing Jones there, one of the Insulate Britain spokespeople. Well, that was quite spicy.
I mean, I think that the fact that individuals like this are increasingly on the ascendancy, speaking to children, terrifying them, paralysing them, when we're actually in the most economically and materially secure times and actually in the best position as a society to adapt to environmental and social challenges far better than the catastrophic conditions that many of our ancestors had with natural disasters, tsunamis, typhoons, all of these things. And we, in a developed society, as we should be developing other countries, are in the best position to cope. And I think this catastrophizing is massively dangerous and irresponsible.
Well, there we are. Let us know what your views are. Lots of you have been. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'll go to those very shortly. Keep all of those views coming in. You can also tweet us, of course you can, at GB News. We'll be back very shortly with more of today's top stories and plenty of your views after a very short break.